Welcome everyone to this sessions on the mobile game level design in Unreal Engine. Today we are going to build the reusable third-person mobile controller using the blueprint, enhanced input, custom touch control. By the end of the sessions, we will have the template that we can quickly adapt the game mode or the different games in interactive experience. For this specific video, I am using the Stacoboard templates, which easily we can download from the web. After the download, we can able to see there are different folders are there. Stacoboard ignore AI, audio, blueprint, environment effects, input maps. We go to the maps and we click on this level into the filter tab. And there are multiple levels are available. And for this specific, I'm using the playroom physics only. Right? Super. So what we do first, we require to create the one folder, which you can able to see code 3, which I have created over here. Now we require to create the three blueprint class. Once you click on the blueprint class, we can able to see we have the actor, pawn, character, player controllers, game mode base, actor component, we have the scene component, but we require to create the characters, player controller, and the game modes. So let's start with to create the first a character. Once you create the character, we give the name code 3, and this is the blueprint of the character, right? Perfect. Now do the right click, again go to the blueprint class. This time we'll create the player controller. So core dash v bp player dash controller. And the last, this time we'll create a blueprint game mode base. So core dash v bp game base. Perfect. Now we will press Ctrl Shift S. So entire the recent, the changes or the modification we have done or added into the any folders, it will gonna save, right? So we begin to organizing the project in the content browsers, created the core folders, and inside it we create the three main blueprints: a characters, player controllers, and the custom game mode. This structures copies what many studios do into the real productions in all core gameplay logic grouped in one place. So it is easy to maintain, duplicate for the new level or move into the another project, right? Perfect. So now what we'll do, we'll go to the game mode base. Once you double click over here and just tab and just place next to the level, this tab. And here we require to do the change of the settings, right? In the player controller class, we switch the parent to the new controller blueprint that sits inside our core folder. This links the level to our custom controller logic instead of the default one. The same approach can be reused whether you want to control the schemes for the different game modes or the prototypes, right? So here we can see we can go to the game mode class, click over here, player controllers, and here we need to select the core 3D BP player controllers. The same we require to change into the default pawn class, which we have just created. Core 3D BP characters over here, right? Simply click on that. Always click on this compile. There is a hamburger options over here. Simply click on that, save on compiled, and always we need to click on that. So here we are unable the option to always the compile automatically. This ensure the whatever we make changes into our changes in our blueprint, Unreal keeps everything compiled and ready to test. It reduces the small errors and speed up the iterations when you are experimenting with the different gameplay ideas. Now we require to save this level into our core folder. Go to the file and click on the save current level as. Now core 3, right click and just create the new folders, and we'll just say core dash level. I double clicks and this is the core physics and click on the save. Now here we can able to see the core level folders has been generated. Once you double click on that, we can able to see our the level has been saved into our folder. Now we require to change the setting into the world setting as well. In world setting, we override the game mode and select the custom game mode from our core folder. From now on, when we press play in this level, Unreal uses our specific character controller and the rules. The same level can later assign onto a different game mode if we want to taste a alternative gameplay. So game override, and here we can see a core 3D paper, BP blueprint game days over here, right? Perfect. Control Shift and S, so it will save the our entire this. Okay. Now what we'll do this time, we will go to our character, the blueprint class which we has been created. Once you double click over here, we can able to see there are the different tabs are open. Into the component, we can see the core, capsule, arrow component, and the mesh component. And we do also have the character movement compositions informations. Below that, we have the My Blueprint where we can see the event begin, event actor begin, event take. There are the different functions tabs are also available. We can able to see the viewport, construction script, and the event graph. We will use the viewport into the event graph. First, we'll assign our characters and what kind of the animation blueprint we require to use. So once you select the capsule into the detail panel, we can able to see there are the different options are available, like example, half height, capsule radiuses are there. So inside the character movement, we enable the different radius and the size options, right? So here we can see we can change the capsule radius. So simply we can modify and change the radius as per our requirement, right? Perfect. We'll do the reset over here. Then we have the different options is like for the rendering, physics, simulation physics, many more options we have. Okay, so uh, we open the character blueprint, adjust the capsule radius, height, so the collision match the body. Correct capsule setting give the more accurate movement on the slopes, stairs, around props. This value can be reused as a standard preset for the similar humanoid characters, right? Okay. In the inside the character, we require to enable the rotation. So there are the many options are there. At the moment, we require to change into the orient rotations. Here we can have the capsule radius. We'll just select it. That's perfect. So when we go to the mesh and when we go to the mesh, we can need to assign the, the characters, right? Um, as I said, we are using the sticker board. So once you click on the mesh, so we can able to see the entire mesh list into the, the mesh list over here. So simply I'll click on the none and I'll select this time SACM robot. I'm able to see my robo or my characters are in the viewport. I'll simply move it down. So there are different viewports available also perspective, top, bottoms, left, right. So there are many options are available in this. Correct? So we are using the perspective. We can able to see this arrow. So we require to rotate our characters into that directions. So press E and just rotate that into the directions, make it 90. Yes, we can able to see. Now here we require to edit our capsule radius. So little bit increase the radius, we can see, yes, it is covered, right? And just click on this compile as well, right? Okay. Now, now we assigned the character mesh, in this case, robo model in our character blueprint. This binds the visual model to the gameplay logic. Later, we can, swap this mesh for the any other character while keeping the same controller and the movement behavior. So we need to check that our characters positions and the rotates it fits correctly inside the capsule. Proper alignment makes sure the fit the touch ground. The collision shapes stayed by the centered, which is essential for the clean animation and the movement, right? Now we will use the animation blueprint. We can select the mesh, and just above that we have the animations class over here, and we can able to see the many animations blueprint class which are already there into the content browsers. So I applying the ABP both apply away, we can see this characters came into this, the idle positions or the idle animations is assigned to that. This gives the characters a basic breathing idle and the simple movement states. The same blueprint can be extended with walk, run, jump, custom action without the changing the input setup, right? Perfect. So now what we have to do now, we need to focus on the character movement. In the detail panel, we enable the orientations, right? So into the character movement, we need to select this character movement and we need to go to the detail panel and we will search for the orient rotation movement. We need to enable this so the character automatically turn in direction it is moving. This setting produce the natural third person movement and is a common for the choice of the actions and the explorations of the games, right? Perfect. Uh, Now we will go to the main the core 3D DP characters and just remove the orient from the detail panel. Um, Here we can turn off use controller yaw. Leaving this on would override the character rotation we just configured. By turning off, we keep the rotation behavior consistent with the movement on this, right? So here we require to use controller rotations yaw. So I'll just check for the rotations yaw. We need to turn off that, right? Click on the compile as well. Now we will start to prepare on the blueprint of into the event graph, right? So here we can able to see we can clean up this nodes or we can create the nodes and get ready to add the logic that connects the player control enhance input and the our characters. So here I'm first we require to make it into a event process. We add an event process node which fires with the controller to takes control of the pawn. From here, we cast our player controller, make sure we use the node, right? Now here we require to add tab and to the cast to player controller. Here we can able to see the class to player. Now here we can just connect this input pins, the new controller to the object over here. Again, click on the compile and save. This connection gives us the reference to the controller that we have access advanced input features, right? Uh, for the enhanced to local player system from the player controller, we get the enhanced local the subsystem. So here I can just simply tab get enhance enhanced player systems, right? Perfect. So let's just require to load these connections, right? So we need to create from the S player controller get enhance player subsystems. Perfect. Right? Okay. This show how flow from the event process to the subsystem. The idea is simple. Once the controller owns the character, we immediately set up which input mapping it should be used for this level, right? Perfect. Now here we require to add context, add mapping context. Using this subsystem, we can call add mapping context subsystem and just try to drag it into the add mapping context. Perfect. So this function is attached in input the mapping assets of the player. So the engine know how to interpret the touch, keyboard, game mode, game pad input. Multiple contexts can be layered, which is a useful for vehicles, menus, and the specials abilities. So we will connect the node of this player controller into the add mapping context. Again, click on the compile. We have connected to the output of the cast player controller to the add mapping context and pass the correct mapping assets. This keep our input logic clean and centralized in one place, right? We can able to see the flow of the blueprint which we have just created. So this is the flow. It is a simple readable chain that can easily be debugged and reuse into our projects. Yeah. So here we can able to see into the mapping context, that is we have the IMC. Now IMC stand for input mapping context. In add mapping context, we will select the IMC, the third person control, right? This mapping define the which gestures of the button are used for the movement, looking, and the other actions. By editing this asset later, we can change the control without touching the blueprint. Now we will use the such buttons into the IMC. So it will take me input asset into the content browser. This helps us the quickly to jump to the input setting where we want to tweak the binding or add the new ones for the ability and interactions. So I'll double click over here and we can able to see the IMC third person's the tabs is open, right? Now we open the mapping asset. Inside that we can see exactly how the axes and actions are bounded to the keys, gamepad sticks, touch input. This view is very helpful for understanding and documenting the control scheme. Mobile thumb pull that are important for the mobile controls. This setting define the low finger motions of the virtual joysticks translate into the character movement inside the level. Now, just close this and again we'll go to our blueprint event graph, right? Okay. Now here we require to create a node of the enhance IA. So I'll just type and just search for IA move. Oh, not this one. IA IA move. So here we can see enhance the actions value. Oh, not this one. So just the tab. Enhance the actions values. Again, this is creating a little bit difficult. Select and just delete it. Tab. We just scroll down, enhance the actions. Yeah, here it is. Uh, we can create an input actions called the IMO, right? Now, here we require to connect it with the enhance input action into the blueprint, right? Okay. I just scroll this. We can able to see the different properties. Actions value we have where we require to do the split, do the right click and say split structures. Now here we can able to see the action value X and action value Y is independently, right? So we require to connect the node. I'll just type and just tab it IA add moment input node. Perfect. So now we can able to see we have created one the moment node, right? This node is responsible for actually pushing the character in a direction each frame. It is one of the core building blocks in the character movement into the Unreal, right? So I'll just trigger this connections to this my add movement component, right? Perfect. Here we can see the basic connection between the input action and the movement node. At this stage, the character can already move, but only in a simple directions. Next, we make it respond properly to along the input, right? So now we can clearly see after the splitting the x and the y value, we'll use x for the one directions such as the left and right, and y for the forward and the backward movement. Now simply we'll connect with x with the scale value 1. Now I just copy this add movement input for y, right? So we'll make this node connections here. This node is going continuous for the add movement input. Now for the y, we'll just drag it into the scale value x. So we have created one add movement for the x and one add movement for the y as well. This means moving the thumb left to the right directionally affect the amount of the movement in that axis. Okay. Together this gives us the 2D full movement on the ground. Okay. To align the movement with the camera, we need to add a get control rotation mode. So I'll just simply click and just type get control get control rotation mode. This gives us the current rotation of the controller, which is usually tied to the camera directions. So we will do the right click and just say split the structure please. So here we can able to see we are getting the the X, Y and the Z, which is a roll, pitch and yaw. This allows us to ignore the pitch when necessary and keep the movement aligned to the ground plane. Perfect. Now we will create a get a right vector. I'll just simply tab and search into this get right vector. I'll just drag this a little bit more side. So all this nodes will connect to this target and I'll just say right click and split the structure scenes over here. Now get the right vector. Uh, we create a get a right vector node from the rotations. This vectors point to the right directions. Let's just create it one more times. Just a tab, get right vector, get right vectors. Perfect. Yeah, this is correct. So this vector points the right relative to the camera and it is ideal for the left-right movement. We plug it into the world positions, right? So I'll just drag these world positions into this first of the world position. I'll move the points over here, right? Now what we require to do, we require to split its property. After connecting to the right vector, the movement node use this orientation to the move the character correctly in the world space. The character now moves right relative to the camera rather than using the along the fixed axis. Okay. Again, do the right click into the rules and just say split screen. So here we require to connect this. Now this is just for the two directions. I'm just connecting it. Okay. Now we will use this second. So again, I'm just copying this. Get control rotations for another moment which I require to add. Perfect. So we just copy this from the previous, the node get rotations uh, controls, right? Again, we get the rotation and split it into the component. This, let us create this the separate, clean the chain of the nodes or for the forward directions without mixing it with the previous calculations. Now we require to create a get forward vector. Now this vector point, let's just create get forward vector. Not this one, and this tab, get, get forward vectors. Yeah. So again, this return value will combine with the world positions of this character, or the character with the character movement tab, add movement input we have created. From this rotations, will create a forward vector node. The vector point in the directions of the camera is the facing and the use the drive forward and the backward movement, making the character feel naturally aligned with the view. Again, do the right click and this time again the split structures and this time we'll just connect with this the x axis, roll axis is that. We plug the forwarded We plug the forwarded vector into the world position, second the add the movement into the input node, and the keep the y value as it is scales. Now the character moves forward when the joystick is pushed up and the backward when it is a pulled down. We plug the forward vector into the world position, add the movement input node, then keep y it is a value. Perfect. The slide so here it is say click on this compile, right? Okay, perfect. So there is a no error. So this is the flow like which we have just created from the scratch, right? Perfect. Here we'll quickly review the each connections into the graph so that every link is clear. We can reuse the same pattern for the other character or other event vehicle with the minimal changes, right? Perfect. Now, again, we'll go to the viewport this times. Now we'll start to work on the spring arm and the camera. So here, uh, select the core BP, the BP character class, go to the add and just search type for the spring arm. Okay. So it will add the spring arm into the component tab over here. Now, what the spring arm will do? It's the positions behind the character. By adjusting its transform value, we decide how far and from which angle player will see the characters. Yeah, we can see this red line has been generated. In the viewport, the red line represents the arm length. We increase, select the spring arm, remove this, and here we have the properties into the detail panels of the spring arm. And here we have the target arm length. Here we can increase and decrease. So we can able to see that what is the length of the spring arm, right? We can do the rotation as well. We can attach the other camera with the spring arm. We increase the target arm length value to pull the camera further back, giving a clear third-person view of the character and the environment. Okay. So we have the target arm length where you can increase. Ideally, 1000 is the good, the value to able to see the environment farther for the explorations or the strategic view. Now we will turn on the collisions of the spring arm, right? Now why we require to turn off this prevent the camera from snapping to the close to the character when it's hits the obstacles. which is often desirable from the top down or the fixed distance the mobile game. So select the spring arm and just search for the collision. So here we have the do collision test. We just turn on, turn off. By default it is on. We require to turn off this, right? Perfect. Okay. Now here we can change the arm rotations as well. Here we can see the X we have. X is not gonna work. Z we have where we require to put the 3/4 of the camera or anything. So again the reset and I'll just put the rotations. Here we can able to see this is the rotations over here, right? Perfect. Now we require to add the camera into the spring arm, right? So go to the add and just type the camera. Simply click on this camera. Just need to make sure the camera need to be the child of the spring arm, right? So I'll select the camera. We can able to see that when we turn on the spring arm and this time when we change the thumb arm length, we can able to see the cameras is also moving. If I change into the rotations, right, I'm able to see my cameras is also, rotations on that. So basically it's become the child of the spring arm. Select the camera, just turn on the reset so we can able to see this. My camera is pointed towards the character, right? So we can check that into the left view as well. Simply click and easily here we can define it. When we play and see that camera appears above and behind the camera, right? We can clearly see the movement and how the level reacts, which is ideal for the debugging controllers and the layout on the mobiles, right? So we require to reset of the camera rotation value. Select the camera, go to the rotations. It is a 0, 0 we require to add, right? Now, here we'll try to work the next is the mobile interface functionality. Now, for the mobile interface functionality, first let's go to the project setting, right? Go to the edit. Here we have the project settings. Now, into the project settings, right? We require to set default game mode in our custom game mode from the core folder, right? This ensure the every new level in the project will use our character, controller, gameplay rules, unless the overridden locally, right? In the editor setup, design, we need to give the controllers, right? So for that, we require to go to the map and nodes. Here we can able to see the map and nodes. Perfect. In the map and node, by the default game mode is none. Simply I'll select and say core 3D BP game base, which we have created into the core folder, right? Perfect. So when the package and the distribute the game, this map will load first. This consistency makes sure players to see the game controllers, camera setup, which we have designed, right? Perfect. And we also require to change the editor startup. So here we can see editor startup. Simply click over here and we can just type into the core. We can able to see the our levels. It's always selected, correct? And again here we can go and just search for the core again. We can see the playroom physics has been selected. Perfect. Great. Now, now we need to work on the touch control, right? Next, we need to navigate the project setting into the touch. So the edit is the project settings is over here and we can search for the touch. So into the mobile here we can able to always show touch interface we need to turn on over here. And by default touch interface, we can select. By default in Unreal, there are the touch, the presets available, two touch presets available. The first is a default virtual joysticks. Second is a left virtual joysticks. So we will use the left visual joysticks for the touch, right? So in input sections, we enable the options from the game touch support so that the editor recognize the finger input that texting on the desktops, right? We enable the one finger drag input. This setting allow the virtual joystick to respond to simply finger movement, which is the stand for the most mobile games, touch-based interactive experience, right? Perfect. So these are the settings we require to, the turn on this. So we need to always turn on this, always show the touch interface, right? So you Unreal provide the default mobile interface with the two joysticks. For our mobile level, we'll create a custom mobile interface. As said, with the simpler joysticks, layout is easier for to understand and modify control play, and we will check that, right? Perfect. So how we can create our own, the joysticks controllers? Again, go to the 4-3, do the right click. This time we will go to the miscellaneous, and in the last we have the touch interface setups. So I give this core touch. So we'll simply click on that. We can able to see the active opacity, inactive opacity, time until deactive, time until reset, activations delay. There are the different properties we have. So at the moment, what we'll do, we'll double click on this touchpad. We can able to see the index. This is the by default, the settings. Here we can able to see we have the virtual joystick terms. We have virtual joystick background. Simply I'll go to my game mode and simply play this. We are can able to see this is the joysticks is assigned to that, right? This is the default joystick. Here we can see very nicely joysticks is working, right? Perfect. So by default, the joysticks like the core touch, it is by our, the touch, the UI we are required to setups on that. So here we have the different settings over here. So what we can do, we can just go to the control and right click and say copy. So once I click on the copy, what it will do, it will copy the entire default of this, the touch interface property, copy, and into a code touch, I'll just do right click and say paste it. So we can able to see that easily we can replicate, from the default touch interface into the our touch interface, right? Now, when I'll go to the project settings, now here we able to see our code touch options are there. Simply click on that, right? So whenever we are playing, so I'll just simply play over here. We can able to see that touch tips is over here. I will show you the resolutions, how we can change the resolutions as per our requirement. I'll press the escape. So again, we can come out from this mode. Yeah, and this is the one more, I'll go to the game mode, layer physics. And so whenever we require to play into our window into a different, so we need to click on this new editor window, pie, right? Okay. So that way we can do the touchpad settings and easily we can change the setting as per our requirement wherever we require to do changes in the mobiles, right? Into the touchpad settings, we enable the prevent recenter, right? Go to the project settings and go to the core touch. Here we have mentions over here prevent recenter. So we need to turn on this, click on the save. So while I'm playing, once I left it, we can able to see the our controllers came into the center, right? If I just press this, right? Here you can see the controllers came to the center. So that option is very useful. Go to the project settings. Here you can see the use mouse for the touch and go to the core touch, and here is options called the prevent the recenter. So we can change the designs and the requirement. Here we can have the centers. With centers, I say reset. So it's making a 0, 0, start and play. Now here we can able to see it's become the 0, 0, right? Again, go to the core touch and just it was give this to 135 and give this to a minus 135. Click on save, select, and just play. Here we can able to see it's came into the left side, right? We can able to see and the move this characters is moving, right? We can space, shift F1. So again, we can start this view. Escape, right? Okay. So into the editor preference to test correctly, we can go to the editor preferences over here. Simply click on the editor preferences. Okay. We open the editor preferences, we go to the place selections. So we go to the place selections. Yes. Now here we can change the comma resolution into the phones. Just like I said earlier. Here we have the difference Samsung Z4s, Apple iPhones, Samsungs. So as per like when we are publishing or releasing the games, so for the which mobile, the resolutions are we required. So simply we can click and select, right? Apple, anything which are required. I go to the play game viewport settings. We have resolutions, right? Here we can have it to the new window positions and simply click. And once you click on that, here we can see it's randomly changing the size. So if I'm looking at phones, so for an example, let's select the iPhone X. Here we can see the resolutions, cores, and just play it. So we can see the resolutions as well designs for the setting, the mobile phone resolutions, right? The editors and the editor preferences, play. Here we can see the resolution and we can change it. Common resolutions, monitors, televisions, laptops, many options are there. So we can explore the more in case where we have requirement, right? Uh, Now what we'll do, there is a like in my scene, right? It is already added the player controller, right? So if I say the play start, uh, just wait, let's just check. Player start. So whenever we'll place our player start, right here we can see Control Shift S. If I'll play, now my games will start to begin where I'm putting my player start options, right? So this is very useful. I'll put it into the position where I require to do. Press F11 for the maximize the viewports and put it down. Or we can use the hand as well. So it will snap to the ground, right? I need to check the directions where I require to add. So if I require to play from this particular area, I'll just move my positions of the player start. Here we can just select and give the positions a little bit more dynamic. So I give this two rotations, this angle. So, right. So I need to just verify. Sure, I can play the positions where we require to do that. So we can explore the more in this, right? And the plus F11 and just the player starts. Here we can just check my player start to work on that screen. We can escape and just a player starts. So we can just start the positions. right? Brilliant, right? So this is how we can create the player controllers, and this is the last one settings we require to, the change into the blueprint characters. So basically, we will select the spring arm. In the spring arm setting, we review the which rotation components it's inherited from the pawn. Typically, we want yaw to be the inherited, so camera rotations, right? So we need to select the spring arm, and we'll go for the rotations component rotation. So use the paw control rotations over here, right? Our camera will not rotate. So here we have the paw control rotation. Simply click on it. Here you can just check again, compile. By default, it was on, and I'll just check now. So my cameras, it's not playing it in the top, right? So again, go to this characters, turn off this. So this is really useful. Do this, the settings, and you can go and just check. Good. So this is the settings where we can do it into the raw, right? Camera setting, use paw control rotations. Now it's not the viewports. Let's go to the core group, select the main controllers of the spring arms, right? And into the camera settings we require to do, use the paw control rotations. We require to turn this on. I just remove this. Let's just check. Yeah, we do not require the page, yaw, and the roll. So turn off this and just only turn on this paw control rotations, right? Again, do the compile start and go to the player controls and just give it. Right? Escaping. So, okay, to the recap, we have used the blueprint for the visual scripting, enhance the input for the flexible control mapping, spring arm, and the camera component for the third person view. The mobile interface system for the touch control and the project setting for the configuration. Each of these tools is industry standards and reusable across the many type of the projects. So thank you everyone and best of luck. Bye.